Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Good evening. It's Thursday, June 24th. Thanks for joining us. I'm Amitha Sharma in for Maya Tribulsi. Political leaders from across San Diego County are calling for an end to travel restrictions at the border. They say the limits are hurting businesses. KPBS reporter John Carroll is live in San Ysidro with more. John?
Amitha, for people who don't live down here, who don't do business down here, who don't have any reason to cross the border, the situation here might go unnoticed, but it is very serious. With cross-border travel limited to essential employees only, businesses that rely on people crossing back and forth are really having a tough time. I did talk to a couple of managers of stores in the Plaza Palmera Las Americas Mall. No one wanted to go on camera, but at the UETA duty-free shop, a supervisor told me their business is down by about 70%. At a news conference outside the Ped West pedestrian crossing, San Diego Mayor Todd Gloria, along with Supervisor Nora Vargas, National City Mayor Alejandra Sotelo Solis, and Imperial Beach Mayor Serge Dedina, they all said the situation is very serious. We'll hear just how serious it is first from Supervisor Vargas, then from Mayor Gloria with an answer to my question about what answers he's getting from Washington as to the delay in getting things back open.
As of today, 198 businesses have closed their doors forever due to these restrictions. And it's estimated that between March 20th and March 2021, retail sales were $200 million, which is a 72% loss for the region.
There's been a receptivity to the information we're providing. What I've yet to receive back is an explanation of, okay, here's where you're at, here's where we need you to be. Again, I think if given those opportunities, we could get there from here.
Before the news conference, Mayor Gloria toured a vaccination site that has been set up here at the Ped West crossing, where Mexican nationals who work in American factories, maquiladores, are being vaccinated. More than 20,000 have received their shots over the last couple of months. Yet another reason political leaders say it's time to get the situation back to normal, to take down these barriers, to let business open up again. Live at the border, John Carroll, KPBS News.
Firefighters are making progress on a brush fire that erupted near Pala Casino. It started yesterday afternoon off State Route 76 and within a few hours grew to 350 acres. At last check, the fire is 10% contained. Evacuation warnings for nearby homes were lifted by the evening after CAL FIRE said the flames were no longer spreading at a dangerous rate. The 76 also reopened. The coronavirus Delta variant, which swept through India and is now the dominant strain in the UK, is rapidly spreading through the U.S. KPBS reporter Alexandra Rangel has more about what it means here at home, as at least a dozen cases of the variant have been reported in San Diego County.
The Delta variant is currently the greatest threat in the U.S. to our attempt to eliminate COVID-19.
Dr. Anthony Fauci says the Delta variant will become the dominant strain in the regions where vaccination rates are low. The CDC says about 20% of the strains in the U.S. are the Delta variant. That's a 10% increase from 2 weeks ago. At least 16 cases of this variant have been confirmed in San Diego County. And even though nearly 50% of Americans are inoculated, Dr. Abisola Ololade at Sharp-Ray-Steele says the variant is still a concern.
We just don't know how it is going to behave. There are some data from out of Israel that show that it does cause higher rates of infection, even in people that have been vaccinated.
And unvaccinated people run a higher risk.
And so if you haven't gotten a vaccine, you need to get one now. This virus is very much a threat to you. After the first dose of the vaccinations, there's only about 33% protection from the Pfizer vaccine, which is very concerning. And it is evidence that this virus is much more of a threat, potentially and possibly the most contagious variant that we have seen so far.
Ololade says there is no evidence that the virus is more deadly. This could be that doctors are getting better at treating the virus. Another concern is that the Delta variant has a new mutation called Delta Plus.
The virus is going to continue to mutate and continue to change, and it's doing it very efficiently and rapidly, which is very, very concerning. And that beta variant, for example, has been found to be the cause of more infections in the Seychelles, which has been one of the highest, the most vaccinated nations.
As doctors and scientists prepare for the impact the Delta variant may cause, Ololade says the best option for people is to protect themselves with the vaccine. Alexandra Rangel, KPBS News.
75% of San Diego voters approved Measure B to create a commission on police practices. But supporters who rallied outside City Hall today say a draft ordinance from the city attorney's office leaves out their top 3 requests. Measure B required independent legal counsel for the commission, subpoena power, and robust investigations, all of which the group San Diego Justice says is missing from the city's current proposal.
In this proposed ordinance, it has defined the term investigation so loosely that it, in effect, doesn't even really require an investigation. The proposed ordinance doesn't even mention independent legal counsel or legal counsel at all.
The City Council's Committee on Public Safety and Livable Neighborhoods reviewed the draft ordinance today. The panel is asking the city attorney to clarify several aspects of the proposal before moving it to the full council. We have a deal. President Joe Biden says he reached an agreement with a group of Democratic and Republican senators to move his infrastructure plan forward. But as Karen Kafa reports, there's still much to be done on Capitol Hill.
It's been a very long time since the last time our country was able to strike a major bipartisan deal on American infrastructure.
President Joe Biden and a bipartisan group of senators say they finally have a deal on an infrastructure spending plan.
This agreement signals to the world that we can function, deliver, and do significant things.
Republicans and Democrats who worked on the framework of the deal with Biden were with the president at the White House Thursday.
We didn't get everything we wanted, but we came up with a good compromise that's going to help the American people.
We all gave some to get some, because what we did was put first the needs of our country.
Lawmakers still have much to do, but finding an agreement that could potentially pass with 60 Senate votes is an important first step. The total cost is said to be around $1.2 trillion, more than $1 trillion less than what the White House initially proposed, with about $559 billion in new spending, according to multiple sources familiar with the matter.
We've agreed on the price tag, the scope, and how to pay for it. It was not easy to get agreement on all 3, but it was essential.
That spending focused on physical infrastructure like the nation's roads and bridges and internet. Democrats will try to pass Biden's so-called human infrastructure plan, which includes proposals for child care, elder care, free community college, and pre-kindergarten, without Republican support, using a budget process known as reconciliation, which only requires a simple majority in the Senate. In Washington, I'm Karen Kafa.
With the CDC's moratorium on evictions set to expire in 1 week, the Biden administration is expected to order an extension through July. According to the National Low-Income Housing Coalition, 6 million American families are behind on rent and at risk of being homeless this summer. The White House wants to buy more time to get federal rent relief money to the tenants who need it. Nearly $50 billion has been allocated during the pandemic. San Diego County's eviction moratorium will most likely end this fall. It's unclear how many evicted people will end up on the street. And KPBS investigative reporter Claire Tragerser found that a rental relief program aimed at preventing homelessness doesn't always get to the people who need it most.
How old are you? I'm 2 years old. Ramon Toscano is a day laborer and father of 5 kids, soon to be 6. Together with his wife and mother-in-law, the family lives in a 2-bedroom apartment in Vista.
This began, with the pandemic in March, and we tried to ask for loans, and used our savings to pay rent, but then it became harder for us.
When the pandemic hit, work dried up. They soon fell behind on rent.
We could eat or we could pay rent. I mean, that's a really hard decision, no?
The family applied to the county's rent relief program this past March and waited. Finally, the money came last month. Rent relief was meant to quell a tsunami of evictions, but across San Diego County, the money is only just beginning to trickle out. The county has doled out only a quarter of the money it's received as of last week, and a KPBS analysis of the funds reveals that wealthier zip codes disproportionately benefit. Residents of San Diego's downtown high-rent district have gotten the most so far. Little Italy and the Gas Lamp received almost $1.4 million, while residents of some of the county's 3 lowest-income neighborhoods each received a fraction of that in Logan Heights, San Ysidro, and National City. And the zip codes where residents have had the best chance at receiving rent relief are some of the wealthiest in the county: Rancho Santa Fe, Poway, Little Italy, and the Gas Lamp. Part of the problem is getting the word out to renters for how to get help, says Azucena Valladolid at the San Diego Housing Commission.
The list is so long. We did paid advertisements in both English and Spanish on the radio.
There are numerous issues with how the money is going out, a complicated system that is difficult for tenants to navigate, the fact that money can't be given to people who've taken loans to pay their rent, and the requirement that landlords cover 20% of the rent money.
That the eviction moratorium does not absolve a tenant's financial responsibility to pay, all of the rent. We have been advocating for significant changes to the state's SB 91 guidelines. If those changes happen, and that's a big if those changes happen, we would be able to exhaust all of the funds that we have.
She says they've seen many tenants who, despite the eviction moratorium, prioritized paying rent over other bills.
They may have taken out loans, may have charged on their credit cards. Unfortunately, under the current program's guidelines, right, in the states, we are not able to pay or provide assistance for people who have taken out loans.
For Toscano, the Vista resident, he did get some money, but nothing to cover April, May, and June, the months he waited after he applied. California is considering a plan to forgive all back rent for people like Toscano. He owes almost $5,000 and is worried.
Maybe we're one more homeless statistic, because if I don't have enough money for my rent, what's going to happen? I'm going to take my family onto the street or in the car to live?
Toscano says this is all because of something his family didn't ask for: the pandemic. Before the pandemic hit, he says he always found a way to pay the rent, one way or the other. Claire Tregesser, KPBS News.
KPBS race and equity reporter Christina Kim contributed to this story. A 12-year-old City Heights boy is raising awareness about the drinking water quality in local schools. KPBS reporter Max Rivlin-Nadler spoke with the incoming 7th grader about why he spent the pandemic focusing on this public health issue.
Sully Jenkins remembers when his elementary school began handing out bottled water after it was determined the tap water was no longer safe to drink.
So for the longest time we had to drink from water bottles, and we couldn't drink, half the year we just couldn't even drink from the fountains just because it was really unsafe, the amount of lead.
So when it came time to do group projects this year, Jenkins looked forward to looking into the issue of drinking water. And when he looked closely, he didn't like what he saw. Specifically, how common lead is in school drinking water.
I was surprised at first, but I realized as I searched, some other places had the same problem, and I realized my other school, it was the same problem. So over time, after not that long, I was like, this isn't good, but this is normal.
So Jenkins created a YouTube video and a Change.org petition to raise awareness of what's happening with drinking water in low-income communities and the danger that contaminants like lead present.
Here's how it could affect children. It can cause brain damage, nervous system damage, stunted growth, stunted development, hearing and speech problems, and learning and mental problems. Here are signs of lead poisoning. The signs are pain, muscle weakness, pins and needles, nausea, abdominal pain, and vomiting.
Jenkins has already shown the video to the San Diego City Council and has taken his research to the streets, tagging up flyers across the neighborhood to raise awareness.
As I was putting those up, I went out by myself on my skates and stuff and just put these all over the neighborhood in different areas, like on College.
He says the solution is in replacing the infrastructure surrounding schools to get rid of corroding pipes and the lack of filtration.
We need to, different plumbing materials like corrode contain lots of lead in them, and those would go in pipes. But the main reason, some of my other students actually talked about this, is there's a lot of old pipes who have rusted, or they had the soldering has rusted, and that's polluting it with lead. And finally, there's also lead paint.
Jenkins said he wants to continue his activism and research in the coming years as he continues to push for cleaner water in City Heights. Max Adler, KPBS News.
The Supreme Court has ruled against a California law allowing union organizers representing farm workers access to the fields they work on. In a 6-3 vote, the High Court ruled union organizers cannot rally support on private land unless they pay the business for the visit. As Jonathan Sarabia reports, the decision drew outcry from United Farm Workers and the son of activist Cesar Chavez.
Farm worker advocates were stunned by a ruling from the Supreme Court barring unions from organizing on the land of farmers. It was a rule championed by Cesar Chavez that's been around since the 70s. Maria Delgado is a Greenfield resident and farm worker. She says it's during those hours and visits from organizers that she and others were able to learn about the resources that are available to them, and more importantly, about their rights.
There's a great need in the fields, and many times the companies don't do enough for us workers. And these unions are the ones that fight for our rights and keep us informed of what's happening.
United Farm Workers say they are disappointed with the decision made by the court and that the ruling will create further injustices for these essential workers in a system that is already broken and racist.
That's what the growers wanted. They wanted them to have less access to information, less access to try to improve their conditions. They'd rather have a worker bow their head and go faster than a worker raise their head and ask about conditions. That's what it's about.
Cesar Chavez's son says this is not the first time that the courts have tried to violate farm workers' rights to unionize, and he says it's a setback but not a defeat.
Farm workers continue to be the one segment of society that is awfully voiceless, powerless, and yet if it wasn't for them, you nor I nor many people would have food on our table on a daily basis.
That was Jonathan Sarabia reporting. The Growers Shipper Association of the Central Coast says the agricultural businesses can now control access and decide whether to allow union organizers on their property. They say the access was disruptive to both the farm and employees. An historic drought is still gripping the U.S. The Drought Monitor reports 91% of the West is in some level of drought, up from 88% last week. California, Nevada, Utah, and North Dakota are still completely in drought. In total, 47% of the continental U.S. is under drought conditions. There were slight improvements in the Carolinas, Georgia, and Florida because of Tropical Storm Claudette.
We saw a little bit of wet weather over this past week, but we're saying goodbye to the rain as we head through the end of the week into the weekend. Seasonable temperatures to begin with for tomorrow, but by the end of the weekend, we're going to be talking about some warmer numbers out there. Some of us in the mid-70s, while some of the deserts will be back towards the 110 range. Until then, tonight, still quiet in San Diego, 64 for the low. Notice we do have the marine clouds out there. Chula Vista, 62 for your low. Meanwhile, as you work your way towards Borrego Springs in the mid-70s, all is fairly quiet as just, again, that coastal comfort, the marine layer there works its way through some of our shoreline and creates a few clouds to begin with as we head into tomorrow morning. Tomorrow itself, we're back into the 70s, 73 for San Diego for the high, 73 in Oceanside. And as we venture inland, Mount Laguna coming in the lower 70s. So there are some places getting a little bit hotter. Escondido coming in the lower 80s. The numbers, though, they are going to start to head up, especially getting into Sunday. So the end of the weekend trending warmer to the mid-70s is where the coastal locations will go by Monday and Tuesday. We still have the coastal fog giving way to afternoon sunshine, so it does get brighter through the days. But that temperature rise, it's going to be a bit more notable inland and east. So for the next couple of days here, we're in the lower to mid 80s. Once we venture into Sunday, though, back close to 90 degrees to close out the weekend for our inland spots, and then staying close to 90 degrees for Monday and Tuesday. There's going to be a similar setup for the mountains as we hold on to the lower to mid 70s, then go into the mid, maybe even close to the upper 70s for Sunday. And the deserts, yeah, we're talking the 110 range. First up, starting off around 105 for Friday, but we'll be back into the 110, 112 range even by the time we get into Monday. For KPBS News, I'm AccuWeather meteorologist Melissa Constanzer.
COVID-19 deaths have fallen dramatically across the country. According to data from Johns Hopkins University, average daily deaths are less than 1/10 of what they were at the peak of the pandemic. But nearly 300 people are still dying of COVID-19 each day in the U.S. And as Mandy Gaither explains, some groups remain more at risk than others.
As COVID-19 deaths hit record lows, those dying are more disproportionately Black than before. Black people account for about 12.5% of the population, but more than 15% of total COVID-19 deaths. In May, that number jumped to 19%, according to CDC data. The average age of people dying of COVID-19 has also shifted to younger people recently. In May, 59% of deaths were among those under the age of 75.
This virus is an opportunist.
A top U.S. health official says an overwhelming number of those dying of COVID-19 are unvaccinated. There's been a dip in vaccinations across the country, especially among those aged 18 to 39 years old. A CDC survey of that age group shows around 52% are already vaccinated or plan to. 23% said they'd probably get vaccinated or were unsure, and nearly 25% reported they probably or definitely would not get vaccinated.
Nearly every death due to COVID-19 is particularly tragic because nearly every death, especially among adults due to COVID-19, is at this point entirely preventable.
Studies show that vaccines protect people well, even against the newly circulating variants of the virus. But the CDC director says as long as there are those who are not vaccinated, COVID-19 will remain a threat. For Health Minute, I'm Mandy Gaither.
If you're eligible to get a vaccine but haven't yet, we have all the information about how and where to get one on our website, kpbs.org. Click on the vaccines link on our homepage to find a location close to you.
I'm Judy Woodruff. Tonight on the NewsHour, the road ahead. A bipartisan group of senators and the White House agree on a nearly $1 trillion infrastructure plan. Coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
The Holiday Bowl will have a brand new home this year, Petco Park. This year's game will be on December 28th, and it will be a number of firsts. It will be the first time in 42 years that the Holiday Bowl won't be played in Mission Valley, and it will also be the first time a football game is played at Petco Park. City officials believe the new move will continue to bring millions of dollars in revenue to the region.
Not only directs the eyeballs of the world to our city, which is a really good thing, but it also brings a lot of people to town and their credit cards.
The move also raises the question of why the game isn't going to be played at the brand new Aztec Stadium in Mission Valley once it's built. Holiday Bowl officials say it's too small. Tickets for the game will go on sale in September. California has slowly been returning to normal after more than a year of pandemic restrictions. KPBS reporter Melissa May gives us a look at one slice of that on a San Diego soccer pitch.
As cars travel above them on the San Diego Coronado Bay Bridge, players gather in Chicano Park for pickup soccer games.
This place is just an iconic place in San Diego. It's very central. The community is very vibrant. So that's why we chose this, and it just kind of falls within our motto of Bridge Marcata. And just the community is It's so rich in culture here.
Paul Nathan Naku is one of the Bridge Barkada founders.
Barkada, it's a Filipino word meaning like community, crew, friends type of thing, and so kind of just rang Bridge Barkada.
Saturday, they hosted their first street soccer pickup games in over a year.
People are really excited. People were here before we even started.
This group provides DIY community engagement through soccer.
This isn't something that's unique. We want this to kind of be the model where people can just come and play, and hopefully in the future we'll have soccer-specific courts, or more of them out there, and we'll have more things like this in San Diego, because we love to play, and this gives an opportunity for us to play and meet people all around in San Diego, and it's a good way to really bridge the gap, metaphorically, like that. We all have something in common in San Diego. This really brings us together.
Bridge Barkada hopes to host at least monthly pickups for now, but are hoping with the help of more volunteers to return to playing every week, as they did before the pandemic. Melissa May, KPBS News.
And you can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thank you for joining us, and have a great evening.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. By viewers like you. Thank you.